It's often referred to as the Asian Stonehenge, but the Turkish megalithic complex of Göbekli Tepe is much older and more monumental. When and how was it built? Moreover, who erected it and for what purpose? It's certainly one of the many puzzles that mainstream science will eventually solve. But many others claim that beneath the hill hosting the ruins lies one of the deepest mysteries of our origin. Recent ground-penetrating radar studies have revealed dozens of sites similar to Göbekli Tepe, buried in the same area at depths of many meters. So, where did the city of the dead come from, and who built it so far back in time? Was it a civilization unknown to us that later disappeared due to a natural cataclysm? According to new and captivating theories, though entirely discredited by mainstream science, one of the numerous stelae in those ruins, the Vulture Stele, recounts through its engraving that around 10,794 BCE, one or more large comets disintegrated in the atmosphere, bombarding the Earth with fragments that hit at least 4 continents. Nothing was the same again. There was a true Mesolithic Apocalypse that risked wiping out the human species, and perhaps even the mysterious visitors who, according to another stele, the Crane Stele, came from the sky and assisted our ancestors in constructing buildings of timeless perfection. The few who survived began constructing monuments, not so much to glorify themselves, but to leave a warning to future generations, as if to say, danger is coming, our civilization has already ended before, and it will end again. Here, science blends with legend, and this extraordinary video will serve to try to separate facts from imagination. Until about 20 years ago, it was believed that civilization made its appearance with the Sumerians around 7,000 years ago. Then, on the border between Syria and Turkey, Göbekli Tepe and nearby settlements were discovered. Since then, everything has changed. The discovery of Göbekli Tepe, a monumental archaeological site in southern Turkey, was one of those instances where archaeology had to revise its knowledge. According to Klaus Schmidt, its discoverer in 1995, the megalithic complex, of which only a minimal part has been unearthed, could be the oldest temple in the world. Let's explore the many questions still surrounding this excavation. How and when was it built? Excavated since 1995, the hill of Göbekli Tepe, literally rounded hill, has yielded the remains of an incredible megalithic complex dating back to around 9,500 BCE. This dating corresponds to the archaeological period of the Mesolithic, which extended from 10,000 to 8,500 BCE, before giving way to the Neolithic, the so-called Stone Age. This period marked a crucial moment in the development of human civilization, where numerous communities shifted from their millennia-old hunter-gatherer lifestyle to become settled communities dedicated to agriculture and animal husbandry. Even the pyramids of Giza or Sumerian ziggurats are modern structures by comparison, dating at least 5,000 years later. Göbekli Tepe is so ancient that it predates sedentary human life, before ceramics, writing, before everything. It comes from a part of human history that is incredibly distant, in the deep past of hunter-gatherers. The uniqueness of Göbekli Tepe lies not only in its antiquity, but also in its monumentality. The megalithic complex consists of several circular enclosures bordered by dry stone walls, constructed without any binder such as mortar, with diameters ranging from 10 to 20 meters, interspersed with monumental T-shaped pillars standing 1.5 to 7 meters tall and weighing over 15 tons. The structure was built using blocks of limestone, extracted from a quarry located a few hundred meters at the foot of the hill, transported to the site, where they were decorated and put in place. Another unique feature of Göbekli Tepe is the engravings on the pillars, adorned in relief with schematic representations of wild animals, birds, snakes, scorpions, wild boars, and stylized human figures, the latter depicted on pairs of pillars usually placed at the center of the enclosures. Archaeologists are still unsure how the monumental blocks were carried and, most importantly, transported to the top of the hill. Considering the absence of the wheel and domesticated pack animals at that time, the most widely accepted hypothesis at the moment is that the construction took place without the use of special tools, harnessing the strength of groups of hundreds of people over an extended period, estimated between 3 and 5 centuries. Who built the site of Göbekli Tepe and why? Who were the people who built Göbekli Tepe? Based on the evidence unearthed during the excavation and reconnaissance in nearby sites, archaeologists believe that the structures were built by nomadic groups of hunter-gatherers who periodically gathered on the hill to carry out construction work. The presence of bones from exclusively wild species, gazelles and wild boars, among the structures of Göbekli Tepe is evidence that animal domestication was not yet a practice among these human groups. At the same time, the discovery of flint sickles and small stone grinders at Göbekli Tepe, coupled with the findings at the contemporary and nearby site of Karaga Dağ, just 30 kilometers from Göbekli Tepe, of the oldest examples of domesticated wheat, suggests that during the same period when the structures of Göbekli Tepe were being built, some human groups were beginning to experiment with the earliest forms of agriculture. To date, only a small portion of the site, 1,000 square meters, has been unearthed. And based on surface surveys, the overall extent of the site is estimated to be as much as 100,000 square meters, with several other megalithic complexes yet to be discovered. What was the function of these structures? Multiple hypotheses have been proposed, ranging from a religious center to an astronomical observatory to a burial site. According to the archaeologists who discovered the site, it would be a place intended for ritual practices, a theory that would make Göbekli Tepe the oldest known temple in the world. When this function ceased, the site was intentionally backfilled with soil. It is estimated that the deliberate filling of the structure required an effort no less formidable than the one needed for their construction. This effort could be justified by the recognized sacredness of the place, thus preserving it. The consequences of the discovery have altered many previously advanced theories about the so-called Neolithic Revolution. The effort required to construct such a monumental complex must have necessitated a large-scale community organization involving several hundred people from distinct tribal groups. It is generally believed that activities for constructing communal structures for public use were a prerogative and a direct consequence of the development of the earliest agricultural communities, the only ones capable of sustaining such collective endeavors. But before moving on, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our videos. Archaeology, however, is not an exact science, and each discovery brings new information that can overturn or modify previous interpretations. The achievements of the Neolithic Revolution resulted from the combination of gradual processes, the initiation of which is challenging to pinpoint in time. Göbekli Tepe is a rare snapshot of a transitional moment when some human groups began to experience a sense of belonging to a territory, likely driven by reasons of a religious and cultural nature. This communal sense would have compelled them to build the first monumental structure in history, at least for now, and to experiment, thousands of years earlier than previously believed, with innovations that gradually led to a fundamental and definitive change in the history of human civilization. But this is only the rational part of the story. In fact, there might be much more. We're talking about something related to the figures depicted on the temple's pillars, particularly the so-called Pillar 43 or Vulture Stone. Some images on Göbekli Tepe's pillars indeed suggest a clear narrative intent, and the entire western side of number 43 is covered with a variety of figures. The dominant one is that of a large vulture raising its left wing while pointing the right wing forward. This gesture may be aimed at the sphere or disc above the tip of the right wing. But to the right of the vulture, another bird is depicted, perhaps an ibis or a young vulture. If we consider this image as the representation of a young bird, then the outstretched wing of the vulture could be a protective gesture, and the sphere could be the egg from which the young bird hatched. Another possibility would be a representation of the sun or the moon. However, the scenario could also signify something entirely different, as we will see below. To the right above the scene, a snake, two H-shaped symbols, and wild birds are depicted. On the column shaft, the dominant figures are a massive scorpion and the head and neck of another bird, while other reliefs to the left of the scorpion and bird are hidden by the perimeter wall. To the right of the bird's neck is a particularly interesting motif, where, despite damage to the material, the representation of a headless human figure with an erect penis is quite clearly recognizable. The depiction seems to refer to aspects of the ancient Neolithic death cult found in other sites, offering another interpretation for the spherical object above the vulture's wing. It could be the representation of the head of the headless man. In the upper parts of Pillar 43, a row of 3 rectangular objects with dome-shaped arches on top can be seen. Each of these objects is accompanied by an animal added to the arch. In short, it's already shocking to learn that someone capable of building such sophisticated architecture roamed the earth 14,000 years ago, almost 10,000 years before the pyramids of Giza. But now, there's more. Among enthusiasts of archaeology and ancient mysteries, an even bolder hypothesis is gaining ground. As we mentioned in the introduction, the Vulture Stone might want to tell posterity about a cosmic catastrophe brought by the comets we mentioned earlier. The entire bas-relief should be considered a celestial map, clearly identifying the constellation of Cygnus, the outstretched wings of the vulture, and Scorpius. With the help of a computer, it has been possible to establish that the 2 constellations were in that exact position in 10,950 BC, at the end of the Paleolithic. The stele is important because it confirms events we already knew, such as the glacial period and the iridium anomaly observed in North America, dating back to 11,000 BC. Iridium is scarce in the soil, and when a geological layer contains much more of it, it means a meteorite or comet brought it to Earth, as happened in the extinction of the dinosaurs. The catastrophic event would also lead to a mini ice age, lasting about 1,000 years, aligning with results obtained from ice core drilling in Greenland. Finally, from the researchers' speculation, it is learned that the sculptural work may have served as a warning for future generations, preserving the memory of human lives lost through the image of the headless man. But the surprises don't end there. Further speculations have been made about the so-called crane stone, where engravers depicted 2 beings with humanoid and bird-like features, with surrounding depictions of emus or ostriches, which incidentally certainly did not inhabit the Anatolian peninsula. From other small signs, some have thought they could assert that the stele tells of the coming of celestial visitors, whether they arrived before or after the comets. These visitors, in the imagination of fantasy archaeologists, have soon transformed into an extraterrestrial civilization that, for a certain period, took care of our ancestors, helping them survive and build the extraordinary temples of Göbekli Tepe. Of course, theories of science fiction and catastrophic nature associated with Göbekli Tepe, although widespread in some circles, do not find support in the scientific community. It deems it absolutely impossible to extrapolate absolute truths based solely on the examined engravings. Specifically, the debate on a possible astronomical connection and the engravings on the pillars is as old as the history of the research on Göbekli Tepe. But so far, convincing evidence of actual celestial orientation or observation of such phenomena has not been provided. Even assuming that the night sky of 14,000 years ago was exactly the same as today's, the question to ask is whether a prehistoric hunter, looking at the stars, would really have identified the same asterisms and constellations we recognize today. It also seems entirely arbitrary to base certain fanciful interpretations on the examination of a couple of randomly selected pillars, ignoring the many other possible interpretations. This can be demonstrated, for example, with the headless man on Pillar 43, interpreted in the document as a symbol of death and mass extinction, omitting, however, to mention the significance of the erect penis emphasized in the same representation, which somehow contradicts the notion of lifeless and implies a much more complex narrative behind these beliefs. In short, the Göbekli Tepe complex seems extraordinary enough as it is, without the need to add mystery to the mystery. Göbekli Tepe comes from a part of human history that is incredibly distant and now forces us, simply by revealing itself to the world, with our catastrophes and the help of alien visitors, to rethink and rewrite the entire history of our species.